How you doing, people? Welcome back to another ESO build video. Today is the strongest Templar tank you will ever encounter. This is designed for PvE content and was previously called Lazy Tank, but is now called Dark Soul, and has been for a whole patch. Basically, one of the major sets we used to take advantage of to pull and taunt in area of effect was kind of destroyed in that area, and we still had to utilize it in order to taunt with a particular skill, but now we do not. Things have changed in our favor, so now this is even easier to use than before and tough as nails. So if you want to see more of this, stay tuned, it is coming up. So with update 44, this was slightly altered because one of the major skills in fact, gave us a bit more of a benefit than it did in the past because Zos had realized that we utilize it for a certain way and they were forcing us to use a certain set, i.e. the Tormentor. We do not need that anymore. That is not on this build anymore. If you're still using it, don't worry. It's not the end of the world. You still get resistances and such, but we do not need it now. In update, I have to be clear about this, 44. So we're going to go over the stats and the skills as usual, but you're going to see why we're not using that as we get through those skills, and then I'll go into the gear and explain what we can use instead. So there are some changes as well involving some of the scribing stuff if you have access to Gold Road. So for those people wanting to use a more custom variant of the setup, then you kind of can, because I've got 2 or 3 options for you for the main pull on the back bar. So let's get into the stats. Resistances, potions, pretty much done. We are on 12.7k max magicka. I know that looks low, but we're not utilizing the strength or the pool itself. The larger the pool, the better, because that's not the case for this build. That is only the case for things that are damagey or healy if they scale off those stats. Pretty much everything we're using scales off of health. So the higher the health, the better. The magicka, we just need the high recovery. So the recovery is 1930. We've got 49.4k max health and 20.9k max stamina. That is all going to be important for you later on. You'll understand more as we get through the video. And my potion ran out. Whoops. We are on 2.7k weapon and spell damage. That's not massively important, but that will be enhanced in group content if other people have got buffs and bonuses. Technically speaking, we can actually enhance that ourselves with one of our passives and put it to 2.9, almost 3k. Spell crit is not that important. You will crit occasionally when it comes to your heals, but we're not really built for damage, so that's not really that important. Spell pen is pretty good. Again, we're not really built for damage, but we'll take it anyway. And we do apply debuff so the group can take advantage of it. Resistance-wise, all we need is the minor resolve from a group member, and we have capped resistances. Prior to that, we're sitting on 30.8 on both sides. Really, really good there. All points into health, and of course the Atronach Mundustone to give us more recovery, so that our magic recovery is quite high, allowing us to pace, but actively use our magic skills quite often. Health and stamina food. This is just over 5k health and just under 5k stamina. I know that doesn't show you anything. It's been a bug forever. Don't worry about it. It's basic blue stuff. It's on the website, written guide if you need it. Now, we're going to go into the skills, and I'm going to explain these obviously in a decent amount of detail, but we do still have a class guide on the channel if you want to take advantage of that. Bear in mind, a couple of skills have changed, so there are some other videos in the general ESO playlist where you can see the new updates or the new changes to the class. However, I'm going to go over some of that today anyway. So, first of all, Dawn's Wrath, we are using Living Dark. Starts off as Eclipse, morph it to Living Dark. This is really simple. Big bubble. And while that bubble is active, when you take damage, you will heal. So, for 12 seconds, anytime you take direct damage, it lashes back at the enemy and snares them, but you will also heal in return. And this can happen every half a second. So if you get hit rapidly, you will heal really, really fast. Don't spam it. You don't need to. It lasts 12 seconds. Very, very strong indeed. You just have to have it running. Next up is Repentance. This is when you see dead bodies on the ground. Starts off as Restoring Aura, morph it to Repentance, and this will give you back just over 3k health and 3k stamina at the same time from each corpse that you consume. You can consume 6 at the same time, no more. But if there are 12 on the ground and you press it twice, yes, you get it twice. This is very, very powerful. The heal doesn't just apply for you though. The stamina return does. The heal is for your whole group if they're within range in a 12-meter radius. Also, while slotted, you have minor fortitude, minor endurance, and minor intellect, increasing your recovery for all 3 stats, at the same time as the major version of all 3 for using tripods. So if you maintain your pots, you have this and the pot bonus all the time. So if you see a dead body, suck it up, get some stamina back. Yes, that works while blocking. Pierce Armor is in our Sword and Board skill line. Very, very simple. Starts off as puncture, morph it to pierce armor. Stab the target with this, it applies minor breach and major breach to the target, removing almost 9k resistances so your group can hit harder. And it also applies a taunt. The taunt lasts 15 seconds. As a tank, different to other MMOs, you have full control of the aggro unless the mechanics say otherwise. And the way to do that is to maintain a taunt by overlapping it. Don't spam it because there's no need to, but if you reapply this like every 12 to 13 seconds, that allows for any gaps in mechanics where you might be stunned or knocked over, and it maintains the taunt. Even if you have to do it every 10, just make sure this is still running. If it slips for a second, someone else is going to die because it will switch aggro. It's not an aggro counter like most MMOs. It is, you taunt it, you have aggro, you don't taunt it, you do not. It will randomly hit who it wants. So maintain this on targets at all times. Explosive charge. This is the skill we're talking about. This is what we used to use with the Tormentor set, because the Tormentor set allowed us to use a jump or chain or gap closer ability to taunt the target that you hit. A long time ago, when you hit the target, because it was a burst effect, all targets hit were taunted. That no longer applies. Then the instant target hit was taunted. That does still apply. But now we don't need that bloody set, because instead, if you have explosive charge from focus charge, specifically this morph, for landing on the target you just hit will be taunted. The Templar has an actual taunt. Not to mention, of course, surrounding targets will be hit with damage as well. Any that are casting will be interrupted and set off balance and stunned. So you have a jump, taunt, area of effect, interrupt, off balance, and stun all at once. Very powerful skill, and to add even more spice to it, like we bloody needed it, while this is active, i.e. the taunt itself, you actually apply yourself with major protection for 15 seconds. So for jumping in once every 15 seconds maximum, you can maintain 100% uptime on major protection for you. As a tank, that is ridiculous. So if you're at long range, you want to grab aggro really quickly, jump in, smack the target with that. The one that you connected with is the one that will be taunted instantly. Then you can apply a debuff with a regular taunt here. Both of these count as actual solid taunts, so they're not like a chain where they will be temporary and it doesn't overwrite itself. This can overwrite itself. And again, you don't need a set to do this anymore. Now you could, if you had high status chance, or if your group was adding to status chance, or if they just had minor breach already in your group, you could swap the pierce armor out for caltrops to allow area of effect breach, major breach in fact. You could get lucky with minor breach because of status effects, and you could use this as your main taunt all the time. However, because this is Magicka and it does cost a bit, it's a lot easier to jump in with this, grab most of the targets with a stab, and then pin them up as and when, and then use this again to gap closer or just to maintain major protection. It's a really stupidly powerful buff. Make sure you use this. Radiant Ward is a swap out. So this has been changed, so it's actually stronger now, but basically it starts off as Sun Shield, morph it to Radiant Ward, and when you activate this, it will apply minor maim in area of effect to all targets affected, technically up to 6, and that will last for 10 seconds. Not only that, you take a damage shield, and the damage shield is increased by 20% for each enemy hit, up to 120%. Again, 6 people. And it scales off of your maximum health. So you can have a huge damage shield. As you can see here, I'll actually apply it to these dummies over here. This applies minor maim in area of effect and watch my health bar. Huge damage shield, absolutely massive. Not quite the full bar, but not far off. It's a very, very powerful skill. So if you're in trouble, while you've got this active, if you get hit, you'll heal, and then you can activate this and cover your health bar. The more enemies, the better. And that means, obviously, you want to be in the crowd. So instead of casting it here, jump in, cast it here. Slight spoiler there, a set went off. Not going to say anything about that. Now, when it comes to your ultimate, this is a bit of a swap out. It's entirely up to you how you want to go about this. But Spell Wall is your oh shit button. As a Templar, you resurrect people very, very fast due to one of your passives. So if someone is in trouble and you've maintained the aggro on the target, so make sure they are taunted, you can activate this and block for free. It's a Sword and Board ulti. The other morph is one that gives you free usage of your Sword and Board skills, but we don't really need that. It does last longer, but this one actually reflects stuff. So if you get shot while this is active, you are blocking for free, you run full speed, you constantly block, and you can reflect stuff back at the enemy. Again, use this first while rezzing, and you can actually stand there on the spot, not getting knocked back, and pick people up. Again, it's a bit of an oh shit button, but it's up to you. If you don't want to use that, then of course you can utilize Solar Prism, which is in the Dawn Draft skill line. This will allow you to put Nova down on the ground as soon as you can be taken from the group to do large damage and then stun the room. And at the same time, you apply Major Maim to all targets, reducing the amount of damage they do by 10%. So you've got Minor Maim in Area of Effect here. You've got Major Maim here if you choose to use this ulti. You can stack them both and the enemy can't really hit that hard at all. At the same time as you healing through being hit and having major protection yourself, it's pretty nuts. You're hard to kill. Now, back bar. Extended Ritual. This is for you and your group. This is in the Restore and Light skill line. This starts off as Cleansing Ritual, morph it to Extended Ritual. Basically, when you activate this, you will remove negative effects from yourself. And if your group takes a synergy from this, they will remove negative effects as well. This is a cleanse ability. Bear in mind, while you can use this as many times as you like, as long as you can maintain it, because it is really expensive, the group can only take the synergy once every 20 seconds, because that's the rule for synergies. Now, when this is on the ground, it will actually heal you and the group every 2 seconds as well. Bear in mind, 5 harmful effects will be removed from you, but other members in the group can remove everything. Again, this is a long duration skill with a rather large area. You don't want to spam it, but if you get in trouble and you have to keep removing curses, then of course you can take advantage of it. Keep that down on the ground at all times. Heal for you and for them, and the synergy itself not only cleanses, but it gives a big heal as well. Restore and Focus is our main resistance bonus and survival skill. It costs a very small amount of stamina, but you put it on the ground in a small 3-meter radius. As long as you're standing in it, you can benefit from the extra. But regardless, once you activate it, you get Major Resolve and you heal every second. Also, you get 2/4/2 stamina back every 1 second, which means while blocking or not blocking, you still get that. Now, while standing in the rune, the heal is actually a lot more. You will get a 200% increase while standing in it, and it scales off of your maximum health. So all you need to do is put it on the ground. As you can see, running around, I still get healed, which is quite nice. Tiny, tiny heal. But if I stand in it, the heal is much larger. Yes, that can crit as well, so that can be quite substantial, especially since it's doing it once a second. Live in Dark can heal you once every half a second, and you've got a massive damage shield. So it's really, really hard to get you down, especially when you've got this on the ground as well to cleanse you, and of course, give you extra heals on top. So big resistance bonus, loads and loads of heals every second, and you've got the jump in for major protection. It's a little bit stupid. You are very, very hard to kill, and you help the group by debuffing the enemies with negative effects to them as far as their damage output is concerned, while applying cleanses and heals at the same time. Kind of a Healy tank. Now, Radiant Glory, of course we've got to have a DPS skill. I mean, you don't need this all day, every day, but it's quite nice to be able to contribute. We are taking advantage of this skill that heals you. It does do damage, much like the other version, but this one heals you based on the amount of damage that you do. So, the health on the target has to be low in order for you to benefit from this. It's an execute. But as you use this, your damage done will heal you in return for 17% of the damage inflicted. And yes, minor, major, minor and major mending and minor and major vitality do contribute to the amount of heal that you can get as well. Now, granted, you're not going to do massive, massive damage, but you can help execute as long as you've got control. So if you can maintain all your buffs, bonuses, debuffs, etc. at the same time while something is really, really low health, as long as you're doing what you should be doing and they are still taunted, you can Jesus beam it a few times for good measure. That does actually help a lot when you're trying to get rid of a boss. Maybe it's just a single target and you just have to maintain a taunt or so. And it also helps a lot in the Infinite Archive if that's where you're going, because you can now actually fight stuff and kill it effectively rather than just holding this and being on the spot. It's really, really helpful. You can swap it for anything else if you prefer, maybe Caltrops if you didn't want to swap Pierce Armor for it and just have it on the ground. You could even use some of the scribing skills for Area of Effect pulls if you really need to, because you want to mess with the in-between timers of your set, or you could just change it for whatever suits you at the time. Maybe even Blood Altar to add that extra healing for your group with minor life still. Strictly speaking though, you're on dual wield on this bar. You're taking the same amount of damage because we've got the block mitigation covered with our champion points. You are effectively able to do damage on this bar. So Radiant Glory did actually work out really, really well to add that extra to the group. And sometimes at very low health, if you're stupidly lucky enough to get crits, you can Jesus beam anywhere between 20 to 30k a tick anyway. So it is extra damage, some of which can do more than some DPS players. This is a flex slot. This is strictly for pulls If you do not have scribing from Gold Road, then of course I would advise you to go into the Fighters Guild skill line and get Silver Leash. That is your main pull. It costs stamina, it's expensive, but it pulls enemies to you, and then you can stab them when they get there with your Pierce Armor if you choose to, because then you can apply the debuff. But either way, when you pull them in, they are taunted for 15 seconds. Now, pulls do not overlap themselves. You will need to apply a real taunt, i.e. the stab or the jump, afterwards if you want to maintain it, but it does give you 15 seconds worth of control. Now, if you do not want to use Silver Leash and you do have access to the scribing system through Gold Road, there are two options I would highly, highly recommend. One is for long-range pulls, and the other one is for close-quarter pulls. Yes, there's a difference, and stay with me. So, first of all, Soul Wield. Very simply put, pull, first of all. Get pull. It will cost magic. It will be 3402, which will actually be about 500 or 600 more than the regular pull if it was stamina. But wait, there's more. If you use this, you remove 600 of the cost because you get 600 back. Not only do you get 600 magic back, making this cost 2.8 instead, so it meets the standardization of the costs, but you also get 600 stamina back with no cooldown. The only cooldown is the global cooldown from skills. So, while you're on your back bar, even if you're blocking, utilizing your magical bar as a pull, you will get stamina back. Even while standing in your rune, which obviously will give you stamina back at 242 every second as well. So if you were to apply this once every second, maybe pulling in 3 enemies, you would get back the best part of 1,800 stamina from this, but then you would also get back just short of 900 stamina with your other skill that is already on the ground. So you can get a lot back by utilizing the other bar with this particular pull. Now, obviously, you want to take advantage of your survival instincts as well. You want to be able to stand there, turtle up, and heal. Well, this will give you major vitality, improving all the heals that you're receiving while you're on your back bar. Now, it will work on the front bar as well, but since we're on the back, it's nice to trigger those buffs ready for when we can start taking in all the tanky stuff at the same time. Now, you could take advantage of any of these other versions if you preferred, but most of them are redundant. We don't need Empower, really, because we can get that from the group anyway, and we're not really heavy attack, and to the point where we're doing loads and loads of damage. It's more for resource gain. Don't need the major intellect, because we've got potions for that. Maim is actually quite nice per target that you pull in, but we can take advantage of that from Nova anyway. Breach is covered with a Taunt. Although that's nice to pull them in and breach them at the same time, but bear in mind the taunt itself on the front bar actually has the minor and major, so there's not really much point there. You can just pull it, pin it, and stab it. You could take advantage of Major Defile if you really needed to, but again, in PvE, that's not going to be that relevant. So the best bet for us was increase all of our heals. Pull, pull, pull. They're all taunted. Swap bars. Debuff them if you need to. They're going to be pinned anyway because of our skills going off, and you've got resources back. Now, close quarter pull, we've got dual wield on the back bar. Traveling knife. Pull is not 22 meters this time, it is 15 meters. With it being our dual wield skill, the price of that will go down to 2.9, as you can see there, which will mean it's not far off of Silver Leech. In fact, that should be exactly the same once you've got all your passives in place. Now, we want to take advantage of Warrior's Opportunity and Brutality and Sorcery. Brutality and Sorcery because why not? We don't need Force because we're barely critting. We don't need the Expedition because we've already got it covered with the Major, although you could use that if you wanted to. Lifesteal isn't a bad option. Maim is unnecessary. Off balance, you've already got that covered with your jump. Crit chance you could utilize if you really wanted to, but the rest of it, I mean, that's for PvP anyway, so it's useless. And minor vulnerability, we've got covered. We'll get into that later. So adding some extra brutality or sorcery actually helps towards our Jesus beams and our other damage that we're doing as and when we want to. But above all, we're taking this. Enemies hit by this pull will take 8% more martial damage. So if you've got anyone using bleed, physical, poison, or disease in your group, they will all do 8% increased damage to the target affected by this for the next 5 seconds. It's a pretty wicked debuff. At the same time as being short range, this also affects multiple targets. So it pulls the enemy that you have targeted, but any enemies in the way on the way back will also be affected. So if I put this on my bar right now, it is a short range pull, unlike the other one, but you will see here, these target skeletons over here, if I pull this dude and then get behind them, all of those just got affected with it. As you can see, they got a debuff on them. That is 8% increased damage to martial damage on those targets. So all you have to do is fire it and line yourself up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them all hit with extra 8% martial damage. That is pretty damn huge, and it's the only skill that does that in the game. So, very, very important debuff there for the group to enhance their damage by a substantial amount if they're doing that damage type. Or you've got the long-range version that costs Magicka, gives you stamina back, and increases your heals. Hopefully that wasn't too confusing, but that's how you make those skills. Next, why are we dual wield overall? Now, you want to morph this from Blade Cloak to Quick Cloak. This will make you fast for the first 4 seconds. It will last 30 seconds instead of 20. And with it being a weapon-based area of effect damage over time skill, although it does direct, it's nitpicky, but any damage over time or time duration skills that need to be applied on the ground or to you from weapon skills can actually apply your glyphs. We've got 2 infused weapons on the back bar, so both glyphs can fire every time this does damage. So major evasion, meaning all area of effect is reduced by 20% on us, which is huge for a tank. And also constant application of your glyph. Very, very powerful. Do not let this run out. We've got major evasion. We've got major resolve. We don't have minor, but we can get it. We have minor protection and major protection. I'm getting to that. We've got minor maim and major maim. Got access to it. Constant heals from here. High recovery bonuses. Constant heals from these 2 as well, plus a cleanse. It's pretty hard to kill you. Plus, you've got major vitality if you choose this. Finally, the back bar ultimate. If you're in the Infinite Archive, you're going to absolutely love this. If you're not, it's still useful anyway. In fact, it's ridiculous. Morph Lacerate to Rend. 8x8 meter area of effect in front of you. 16-second duration and incredibly cheap. When you activate this, a bleed will go onto the target and you will heal for 51% of the damage done. Bear in mind that damage is quite high, it's a fast rate tick, and also does consider your healing bonuses. So while you have minor mending on the ground, that will enhance itself already to 55% of the damage done. If you get major mending from whatever source, if you can, you probably won't on this particular setup, but if you were to have it, that would enhance it even more. If you have minor and major vitality, which we do have major vitality, this will be even stronger. Vitality doesn't show in the stats, however. It only affects your character. Every single tick of damage applies hemorrhage. So over the 16-second period of time, every single second reapplies hemorrhage every second. And that means that the 3 stacks you need to cap hemorrhage out to make it the strongest will constantly reapply itself. You have maximum strength of hemorrhage for a full 16 seconds. Now, I know it says 16 and you think the 2-second wind up is going to make it 14. No, it's not, because hemorrhage lasts 3 anyway, technically 4. So you're going to get the full stacks. That in Infinite Archive is not only crazy for big pulls where you can survive a lot more, but it is also very, very nice if you get focused efforts. In everyday content, it's great. In Infinite Archive, it's ridiculous. You can wipe out rooms. Then you can Jesus beam them. So, that's pretty much it for that. Now we're going to go into the passives. Of course, you want to get these. You can read them in your own time, but I'm going to go over them quickly just to let you know what you need to do. So, Piercing Spear is quite simple. You do increased critical damage while you have an Adric Spear ability on your bar, and you do more damage to blocking players. Bear in mind, this is Adric Spear, so that's covered, and so is this. You just need 1 skill on that bar. We haven't got any on the back bar, so you don't get the bonus there, but the front bar is covered. Minor protection for using an ability for 6 seconds from this skill line. So all you need to do is damage shield. Look at my buff timers there. See the yellow one on the right-hand side? That one has a 6-second timer. That's minor protection. 5% reduction to damage incoming. Your jump also does the same. But look, there's 2 that are very similar. Why? One of them is major, one of them is minor. They stack. For jumping, we have 5% and 10% reduction to damage. Bear in mind, they are multiplicative bonuses, so it's not 15%, but you do get both of them nonetheless, and you still benefit regardless. There is a video on my channel if you want to know more about damage mitigation and how to calculate it. Back in here. When you deal damage, you generate a stack of Burning Light. So any damage that you do on this class, you will stack Burning Light for 3 seconds. And if you overlap it up to 4 times, you will do free magic damage. This can be applied once every half a second. We are doing damage of sorts, so that will fire. And of course, we have increased weapon and spell damage and physical and spell resistances. Dawn's Wrath is quite important. Increases the duration of these skills. Great. We're not really using it apart from Eclipse, but that does count. And also if you're using the ultimate, that does there as well. So not too bad. This one doesn't get affected because it's a channel, but regardless, these 2 will get used. This one and the ultimate. When you use the Dawn's Wrath ability, at least once every 6 seconds, you'll get 3 ultimate. So while I said don't spam this ability, because 1 is expensive and 2 it lasts 12, If you were to reapply this every 6 seconds just to maintain it, if you can afford to, then you will get 3 ultimate for the privilege. But failing that, I mean, if you just maintain this and then Jesus Beam something, that's going to cover it anyway, because Jesus Beam will be fired a lot more often. Remember to maintain your taunts. Applying a Dawn's Wrath ability once every 20 seconds will make this more efficient, but you can overlap it as many times as you need to, but every time you do, it will give the group 20 seconds worth of minor sorcery. Increase weapon and spell damage. Sorry, increase spell damage by 10%. Reduces the health, magicka, and stamina cost and ultimate cost of all abilities. We are using skills from this bar. Skill line even. Bar. Increases the healing effects from restoring light abilities up to 12% in proportion to the severity of the target's wounds. So the lower the health, the bigger the heal. Standing in your rune focus or channeling cleansing ritual, which we are, and for 4 seconds after leaving will give you minor mending, increasing healing done for 8%, which is, we're going to benefit from that a lot. And also increases the amount of damage you can block for the duration. So while we have 4 seconds or less out of one of the circles, or just standing in it, we do actually take less damage while blocking. When you heal an ally under 50% with a Restore and Light ability, you grant them 2 ultimate. The healing part for the resistance bonus from the healing ulti is irrelevant. We're not using it, but it's there if you like it. Increases resurrection speed. Allies come back with more health, and you can fill a soul gem if you're lucky. You are the fastest class in the game at resurrecting, and I know some snippy people are going to go, well, Necro is actually. Necro is not actually, because you have to build up a really, really expensive ultimate to res 3 people. This doesn't require an ultimate. You can just walk over and manually res them. It's the fastest manual resurrection in the game. And you don't need any prerequisites to do so apart from this passive. Sword and Board. Get every single one of these. I'm not going to go over them in too much detail, but basically they reduce the cost of your skills. They increase the amount of damage you can block, increase the amount of damage of bash, and obviously reduce the cost of it. They will reduce the amount of damage you take from projectiles and make you move fast. Again, you can read through them in more detail in your own time. That's going to be one of those things you just need to make sure you get them all. Dual wield as well. This is more for damage increase. Obviously, low health targets take more damage if you're on dual wield. With dual wield abilities, you have a flat increase to your offhand. You reduce the cost of the skills. You do more damage to immobilize or off balance or stun targets. And of course, you have bonuses based on your weapon choices. We have chosen Dagger to give us more crit chance on the back bar, which will allow us to sometimes crit the Jesus Beam more often. That also counts towards your heals as well on that bar. We are taking advantage of nothing but heavy armor to get all of these passives. Increase resistances, increase healing recovery, increase resources back for being hit. Yes, once every 4 seconds you get stuff back. More health, more return from heavy attacks, because obviously you want a heavy attack to maintain your resources, and increased healing received. Now you do want to take advantage of the Fighters Guild passives if you do choose Silver Leash. You're going to want to make sure that you do have the, where's it gone? Intimidating Presence, so you reduce the cost of the skill, and also it doesn't hurt to have Banish the Wicked and Slay it if you really want to. But if you're not using the Fighters Guild pull and you're using the Soul Magic one instead, you don't need any passives here whatsoever. Mage's Guild, again, that's irrelevant, you don't need it. Undaunted, you do want these 2 passives. Any synergy you take will give you a heal and resources back. And of course, for using one type of armor, we do get a bonus for all 3 stats regardless. Yes, of course, you could go light and medium, but you're going to suffer in your heavy armor passives, which will negatively impact the build. Not worth the flat stat increase. We are Imperial. Max health, max stamina, and reduces the cost of every single skill that we have, including our ultimates. Absolutely flat stuff. Brilliant. If you want to use any other class, race even, you can. It won't make a huge difference, but you have to understand the differences in passives. You might have to tweak some stats here and there to meet in the middle, or you might just have to alter some food or potions depending on how it affects you. It's not going to break the build if you choose a different race. You will just get different character stats. As long as you can consider those, you'll be absolutely fine. Medicinal use. You've got so many buffs and bonuses on this particular build. Negative ones for the enemy, positive ones for you and your group. Make sure that you keep your potions running 100% of the time. You have medicinal use, your potions last 47 seconds. If it's not grey, pop it. It's not used just for when you're low and you want an emergency heal or emergency resources, because if you do that, it's too late. 2 skills, maybe 3 skills, the stuff you just got back from that potion is gone. But if you maintain your potions, the recovery will keep your bar healthy for a longer period of time, so you don't have to heavy attack so much, you don't have to wait for these for an emergency, you don't have to do that much at all. Maintain these as consumable buffs. If you don't have enough potions right now and you feel like you should keep them and use them sparingly, then I suggest you go and make some more gold and make sure you've got a decent amount of potions. Otherwise, you may as well just drop some of these resistance bonuses and other bonuses occasionally just because you don't feel like you can spend the resources. They're important. Bonuses to your build are what help it perform. Make sure you can maintain them. Consumable buffs are just as important as your castable ones. As harsh as that may sound, it's true. I've seen people fail so hard and they always blame the build for it. Maintain your potions. Your recovery is important. Now, what have we done to the gear? What did we do indeed? So, Tormentor is gone. We're not using it anymore. We are still using Rush of Agony, obviously, on the weapons and the jewelry, with healthy and magical recovery on all. If you feel like your magical recovery is not quite enough, then of course you can change one or two of these to infused, but understand that your health will go down. Your health is a main stat for this particular build because it supports many of the healing skills that we utilize, including your damage shield. So the lesser the health, the less effective those skills are. It's up to you if you are willing to sacrifice that. They will not be as effective, so don't expect them to be as strong. But if you want to be able to use more magicka because you can't quite maintain it, then of course you can change a couple of these. Anyway, stam recovery, useful when you're not blocking. Extra weapon and spell damage, and offensive pen. All of those are actually quite helpful because we can do a little bit of extra damage. We can do more of our Jesus beam. You get the idea. It does help to have a little bit. But when you deal direct damage with a blink, charge, leap, or teleport ability, or a pull ability, you actually chain in, after a 0.8 second channel, or timer, enemies within 12 meters. After 2 seconds, you will then deal damage in the area of effect. So you will pull them, and then it go pop. That is actually a physical proc, not bleed, so you can apply Sunder if you're lucky. Sunder will debuff them with minor breach, but it will also give you 100 weapon and spell damage. And it scales off of your offensive stats. So the offensive stats the set comes with scales and increases the damage of the proc. But the main thing about this is the actual pull is the only pull in the game.
Drinks all around.
Thank you, Captain Jack Sparrow. I just got a follow, apparently. The pull is the only pull in the game that does not apply crowd control immunity to the target. They do not count as though they have been stunned, which means you can stun them straight after. Now, with that being a 0.8 second channel for the pull, your hit is already on the target. You have already damaged them. So, after 1.5 seconds, so less than a second afterwards, this will pop, which will stun targets in area of effect for 3 seconds. So you jump, taunt, pin, and pull, and stun all at the same time. They bounce off each other. Now, as far as this traits and stats and all that kind of stuff are concerned, you want a crusher on the front bar with defending, and you want to have reinforced on both the helmet and the shoulders to make sure we're capping on our resistances a little bit if we get the extra buffs, with healthy on both of them. Now, the back bar set is different. The back bar set is the Black Rose daggers. We have deliberately chosen daggers for the crit chance. If you don't have daggers, use whatever the hell you can get hold of. You do not need perfected. Perfected only gives you a stamina recovery bonus. If you are blocking, that is turned off anyway. The bonus to the two pieces overall is exactly the same. All you need to do is have Blade Cloak active, you know, our Spectral Cloak procer, which is this here, quick cloak. Spectral Cloak will then fire from this set every 2 seconds. Bear in mind it does damage every 2 seconds, this will fire every 2 seconds. Reducing the damage you take by 6% and increasing the damage you do by 6%. Our Jesus Beam does more, our Rend does more, all that good stuff. And this will constantly give us a mitigation bonus, and it continues when you swap bars. So as long as you maintain Quick Cloak and stay close to targets, which you should do because you're a tank and you can jump in, then this will constantly give you that bonus. It is absolutely mental, and it's very hard for you to die utilizing major evasion and this at the same time. Now, the body set used to be the Tormentor, which gave us resistances and health and allowed us to have an extra ability to taunt stuff. Our taunt is now covered. We don't need that. We did need to plug the resistances. Don't worry, I've done that with the traits because we've got reinforced on the helmet, the shoulders, and the chest. The chest and the body pieces for the rest of it is live wire. Live wire will allow you to have extra healing received. 2 bonuses there, actually, 4% and 4%, and extra health, which is quite nice. It's full heavy armor, and when you take damage, once every 6 seconds, you will apply guaranteed concussion status effect in area of effect to all targets hit. Bear in mind, when you hit those enemies, every enemy hit will heal you. This is very, very helpful in everyday content because you are now applying concussion, which is minor vulnerability in area of effect. All targets hit will have 4 seconds worth of increased damage taken. They will actually take 5% more damage for having that on them. Major vulnerability does stack with it. Now, in an Infinite Archive, concussion does damage, obviously, and if you have focused efforts, not only are you applying minor vulnerability to them, but you're also hitting them with a rather large amount of damage every 6 seconds while healing yourself, and that is a free proc. All you have to do is get hit, and you will do. Survival, debuff, and damage all at once in one set. Heavily underrated set. If you don't need that for the minor vulnerability, because the group has that covered already, maybe they've got lots of concussion. If that is covered, then you want to swap out for leeching, obviously. Very similar bonuses, a little bit more health, and every time you get hit, the people that hit you will take damage in poison damage, and you will constantly heal. It will be much higher survival than this set, substantial amount higher, but you won't apply the concussion procs. You will, however, have a chance to apply the poison procs, which can actually start to execute targets because it gets stronger the lower their health. If you're feeling really, really shiny and you do trials a lot and you want to be a little bit more helpful towards the group's damage output, then of course you can go into Lucid Citadel and take advantage of this. This will give you heal and taken, again, much like the last one, extra health and health again, much like leeching, so basically the same stats, but with minor Aegis. So leeching with minor Aegis. But if you have high health, your whole group gets increased critical damage and healing by 11%. If you have lower health, so you're under 50%, you take 20% less damage. Yes, that does work in the Infinite Archive as well, obviously. So if you're fighting fucking McForearms and your health goes too low, you are now even harder to kill. So this is absolutely bloody mental if you can get it. You don't need Perfected. It's just 1 health bonus difference. You can get the normal one. But if you are a bit more involved in helping people have more damage output, if that's what you're really after, then of course that is a very, very solid set. Bear in mind, crit damage is something that's very, very easy to cap at because it's 125%. So if everyone's already hitting that, this is actually useless for that purpose, but it's an incredible survival set if you go low health a lot. So, Livewire for everyday use. Leeching if you have concussion or minor vulnerability covered in your group, or you're not in the Infinite Archive. This, if you want to go into a trial or dungeon scenario and give more damage output. And if you don't have any of this, because you don't have DLCs, you don't have the Overland of Clockwork, or you can't find it on the market because you can buy this set, or if you don't have Gold Road and you can't go in that trial, take this. Kagranak's Hope is hilarious. Magical bonus, great. Health bonus, also great. Mag recovery, perfect. Extra weapon and spell damage, what's to complain about? And decreases the time it takes you to resurrect people, and you get magical back for doing so. If you do have to resurrect people, you're fast. You have this, really stupidly fast. And there's a champion point passive to support this, so you can res people in less than 3 seconds. That is your oh shit set, just in case you're in one of those types of groups. Livewire all day, leeching if you have minor vulnerability covered. This if you want to be a bit more serious about the kind of buffs and debuffs and all that kind of stuff for a trial group. Not to say these can't do it, because they most definitely can. And this if you have nothing of the above. Now, you want resistance increase, so reinforce on the top 3. Sturdy on absolutely everything else, including the shield. Shield can be healthy or stamina based, depending on how you feel. Defending on the front with a crusher. And infused on the back with a magic glyph to give you resources back. And a reduction to weapon and spell damage, because obviously that will debuff the target as well, meaning you get hit less yet again. Very, very strong stuff. Now, we're going to go into the champion points, so this hopefully makes a bit more sense. You know we've got loads of mitigation already, but here's some more. So we've got Ironclad here on the defensive bonus side of things. You can get these minor passives as well. They are going to be very important to you, but they don't take up any slots. Then you want Duelist Rebuff, Endure and Resolve, and Unassailable. All this for damage mitigation bonuses. Absolutely bloody mental. You do not need Bulwark because we are covered with our resistances, and if we get minor resolve, we can actually cap. But if you are a different setup, let's say, and you have much less resistances because maybe you haven't capped out everything in gold, maybe you're running some blue sets or something like that, and you feel like your resistance is slightly suffering, then of course you can take advantage of this for the time being. But it's not something that we need once we're done. When it comes to the red tree, this is quite simple. These two do not require any prerequisites. Get them straight away. More health, more resistances. Now you want to go into this area, get this as soon as you can for more health, and you want to take advantage of this. This will allow you to resurrect people much faster, and it does stack with your Templar passive. And it does stack with Kagranax if you choose to do that. So really, really quick. The rest of the time, if you're not using your ultimate very often, even though you should be, if you're holding on to it for whatever reason, then of course you can take advantage of this and have high health recovery, but above all, to be fair, take this. You're the one that's more likely to res people because you can block ulti with a taunt and pick them up really, really quickly without messing up too much. And in this tree over here, two things. One, this allows us much more block mitigation. We already have a 10% increase while standing in our rune. We have a 20% increase for standing anywhere with our sword and board blocked, and this allows you to have more on top of that. But this also defeats a problem that we would have on our back bar. While our front bar is massive mitigation, our back bar has no tanky passives whatsoever because we're using dual wield. The block mitigation bonus for sword and board and ice staff is 20%. If we have this all the time, this will allow us on our dual wield bar to block as though we are effectively utilizing a tank weapon. So on the front bar, we are overkill and very hard to die. On the back bar, we are now standardizing our block mitigation with that of a tanky weapon. We do have a reduction to movement speed, but bear in mind, we've got an increase to movement speed if we're using quick cloak. So it's not a problem. You won't actually see the negative effects of it. Green tree doesn't make a shit's bit of difference. Food lasts longer. Potions might have a chance not to use, but still get the bonuses. This makes you faster between fights, which is great. And this, of course, gives you higher quality loot from chests. Those are the ones I'd recommend, but it really doesn't matter because none of these really affect you in combat. So how do you play it? Well, first of all, you need this down on the ground and this down on the ground so you can turtle up and be tough as fuck. But what about control? So you have a range taunt and pull, which you need to obviously utilize to pull people to your space. They need to be where you are. You control the fight. If they're a range target, there's a video about that in the beginner series on how to get good, but basically you pull them to you and you hold them still. Now your Celestrix will do the work. We'll wait for them to come back. When you activate any damage on a target, Celestrix will fire and pin them in area of effect via a stun. And this is how this works on the initial pull. If you jump in, enemies are pulled, Celestrix pops, and they all stun. Absolute control. Now you can individually stab targets to make sure that they are debuffed if you need to, and reapply the pull as and when. If something is too far away, you can apply the long range one for your extra healing, while your heals are under your feet, being really tough. Now, the rest of the time, maintain your Living Dark, so you heal off of damage being done. Damage shield as and when you need to, but to also apply minor maim. And make sure you always keep your Quick Cloak running. Quick Cloak is the longest buff you've got here, it's 30 seconds. Technically speaking, Extended Ritual is the same size, or duration. So those two have to be up at all times alongside this. So to recap, Quick Cloak, Extended Ritual, and Rune. While you jump in, damage shield, and pin. Maintain Living Dark, and maintain taunts. When they start to run out, you simply reapply them. So always keep those up. The trick to jumping in is about timing everything at once. So your jump is like a 1 second timer. You'll land, you'll get minor protection, major protection at the same time. You'll hit everything, interrupt them, and knock them off balance and stun them if they can be stunned at the time. But you'll also pull them and stun them with Celestrix, and then the damage shield prevents them from hitting you really hard on the way in, and you minor maim them at the same time. So if you look very carefully at the buffs and debuffs above their head, you'll see all these go off at once. Jump, pull, damage shield, block. They're all stunned, full control, and the rest of the stuff that you have running already, if you were, would also help towards that, including weapon and spell damage reduction, all that good stuff. Maim needs to be maintained. It's a 10-second long timer. It's really, really long. It's not that difficult to apply a damage shield, not get hit very hard, and debuff them. Essentially, jump, damage, pin them, and just hold them still. Now, obviously, if you've got to run around the room, you need to maintain a lot of moving parts, but it will take a little bit of practice. Once you start nailing it and understanding that the Templar is designed to turtle up and stay on the spot, you won't get hit very hard at all. It's really difficult for you to die. Even with the other variations of the build, set-wise, it's not that hard. Probably was a little bit waffles, but we'll go over it one more time. These need to be on the ground at all times. You need to be jumping in and damage shielding and keeping up your survival. Now, you maintain your taunt, indefinitely. We're keeping up your turtle up and stand here skills. If you have to move anywhere, reapply your rune underneath you if you're going to stand still afterwards. Your ultimate is ridiculous, by the way. I'm just going to put the rune down on this one. So I'm going to move this out of the way because it's a really long duration. All I'm going to do is put the rune on the floor after I aggro them. And I'm going to put rend on them. Watch my green numbers at the right-hand side. That constant spam of heals is for every tick of damage happening from that skill. Bear in mind, I can also damage shield and use this and use this. Major vitality from the pull as well makes it even stronger. That's ridiculous. You get the idea. Anyway, people, it's time for fashion. Same outfit as before. Every single part of this is House Monad heavy. Every single piece. Chest, shoulders, hands, legs, belt, feet. Even the front bar, weapon, and shield is all House Monad, and it is painted grey. Bits of black in there somewhere, but it's mostly grey. Now, the back bar weapons aren't painted at all, but they're both Daedric. So they are both Dremora swords. Not Daedric sword, Dremora. Yeah, Daedric and Dremora. It's confusing, I know. But they're both Dremora swords. So hopefully that helped. Hopefully it wasn't too boring. Hopefully that offers some insight as for those of you already using the Dark Souls build as to what you can do next. And if you're not already using one of these, maybe it will influence your choices as to what to do with your Templar. If you have anything to say about it, whether you like it or hate it, please put it in the comment section below, especially those that are experienced in the actual build. Let me know how you got on. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye!